to the one that we had in the 1970s. And he was saying that the problem now is so much easier to fix, that it's nowhere near as bad as it was back in the 1970s. And one of the reasons that he said the economy is so strong is because of our red hot labor market, that we have such a strong labor market. We have all these jobs that are unfilled, and that even if the Fed causes some jobs to be destroyed, we have such a surplus of jobs. We have so many extra jobs that we can afford to lose a bunch, and we're still going to have this super strong red hot labor market. And so he's not worried. He said we can raise rates now and not cause a recession or not cause unemployment the way the Fed caused unemployment and recession back in the 1970s, early 80s, because we have this really, really strong labor market. But again, he is looking at the labor market through the prism of 0% interest rates and QE. He's looking in the rearview mirror because we no longer have that monetary policy. All you have to do is look through the windshield and look at what's coming. It is going to be massive layoffs. I'm going to get to, again, the carnage on Wall Street, but these companies are imploding. A lot of them are going to go bankrupt. Massive layoffs are coming. And even the people that don't get laid off are going to cut back on their spending because they've been wiped out in the stock market. And so a lot of jobs are going to go away. All these open positions that are unfilled that he's talking about, companies are going to decide all of a sudden, hey, we don't need these people. Let's just stop looking for workers because you know what? We don't need them. We thought we needed them because we thought we had a strong economy, but we were wrong. We now have a recession, and so we don't need all those workers that we thought we needed, and so those job openings are no longer there. Meanwhile, a lot of people who weren't even in the labor force because they were making so much money trading stocks and cryptocurrencies, these guys need jobs. Also, a lot of retirees who were out of the labor force, but whose retirement income has been obliterated and the cost of living keeps going up. A lot of these guys are going to come off the sideline, back into the job game. They're now going to be unemployed. So the unemployment rate is going to spike very quickly. And when it does, all those job openings are going to disappear. And the myth of this strong labor market is going to go away. But what we're going to be left with is the reality of high inflation and no ability on the part of the Fed to fight that inflation without causing a recession. In fact, not only will they cause a recession, they can cause a depression. They will cause a financial crisis that is much bigger than the financial crisis they caused in 2008. Only this time, if the Fed is committed to fighting inflation, no bailouts for anybody, which means it's going to be that much worse. When you're running a small business, one of the hardest things to do is hire the right people. And that's especially true because when you hire the wrong people, it can turn into a real nightmare. And that's why you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed can be a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. You can find great talent fast using time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. What I like best about Indeed is how much they've simplified the hiring process. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you'll get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description, so you can immediately invite them to apply. Even better, Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for the applicants that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an incredibly powerful hiring partner, delivering 4 times more hires than all the other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. So join the more than 3 million business owners worldwide who already use Indeed to hire great talent fast. So start hiring right now and get a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Peter. Offer good for a limited time. So claim your $75 job credit now at Indeed.com/Peter. That's Indeed.com/Peter. Terms and conditions apply. Pay per qualified applicant. Not available for all users. If you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Another big difference that Waller pointed out that in his opinion puts the Fed in a much better position now than it was when Paul Volcker was the chair back in 1980 is the fact that the Federal Reserve has so much more credibility on fighting inflation now than it had back in 1980. How does he figure that? I mean, how does the Fed have any credibility in inflation fighting when it hasn't even fought inflation? It's been denying inflation existed. In fact, according to the Fed, for the last 5 or 10 years, there wasn't enough inflation. Its goal was to create more inflation. So how does Waller think the Fed has any credibility in doing something that it has never even done? Now, when he talked about the problem the Fed had in the 1970s, he said, well, by 1980, when Volcker came around, we had 10 years of inflation, and so the Fed lost its credibility on fighting inflation because we had it for so long and the Fed hadn't successfully fought it. He claims that we've only had our inflation for about a year, and so we don't have this baggage of having had a 10-year inflation problem that's weighing on credibility. Well, the main reason that we haven't had an inflation problem for the last 10 years is because we haven't admitted it. We've had inflation, we're just not measuring it properly based on the CPI. If we were actually measuring inflation during the last 10 years, the way they measured it during the 1970s, we would have had many, many years of high inflation. So the reason we didn't is because we lied about it. But that didn't mean we didn't have it. We just didn't acknowledge it. It was there, but also a lot of the inflation was exported. Look at our trade deficits. A lot of it went into financial assets. Look at the bubble that we had. Yes, there was a bubble during the 1960s too, during the era of the Nifty 50 and what was going on back then with the bubble in stocks. But the one that we've just gone through dwarfs any bubble that we had during the 1960s. So this is a much bigger inflation problem. The fact that Waller thinks it's no big deal that there was a much bigger problem in the 70s than the one we have now shows you how little the Fed actually understands the economy that we have now, let alone the economy as it existed back in the 70s and early 1980s. The fact of the matter is the economy was actually in much better shape back then. Back in 1980, America was the world's largest creditor nation. We're now the world's largest debtor nation. Back in 1980, America still ran annual trade surpluses. Today, we are running record annual trade deficits. And of course, back in 1980, the national debt was under 1 trillion. Now it's over 30 trillion. And back then, almost all that debt was financed with 20, 30-year treasuries. Now it's financed with 90-day T-bills. We are far more leveraged and far more vulnerable to rising interest rates now than we were then. And that topic was not even mentioned during this entire discussion. You have them talking about a comparison between the inflation now and the inflation back then and what the Fed has to do to contain it, and how the Fed has a much easier job now, that it's nowhere near as difficult as it was when Volcker was there, because Volcker had to raise interest rates up to 20%. We don't have to do that this time because we have so much more credibility. But even if we had to go to 5%, let alone 10 or 20%, even 5% is too much for the economy to bear.